Hello everyone, welcome to Eye on Africa. These are the headlines. Polls close in Malawi after a tight presidential and parliamentary race. Incumbent President Peter Mutharika, Deputy President Saulos Chilima, and opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera all have their eyes set on the presidency. We'll go live to Malawi in just a moment. As talks in Sudan between military and civilian leaders stall once again, frustration and anger grows on the streets. Our team in Khartoum has the reaction from protesters. And Benin's President Patrice Talon breaks his silence 3 weeks after post-electoral violence shakes the country. We begin in Malawi, where some 6.8 million people were called to cast their ballots in the country's presidential and parliamentary elections. The vote is a test for incumbent President Peter Mutharika, who ran against Deputy President Saulos Chilima and opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera. Mutharika's supporters say he helped build up the country's road infrastructure and drove inflation in Malawi down. His critics, though, accuse the president of corruption and cronyism. For more, let's go live to Blantyre to speak to journalist Lamek Messina. First of all, Lamek, how did the vote go today?
The vote went well, nicely. The polls opened at 6 a.m. and the turnout was good. And although there were some sort of maybe some delays in opening in the morning, but by the end of the day, everything went well. But as usual, the polls did not felt they also had some sort of incidents. For example, in the central Malawi, in the capital Lilongwe, the vice president, Saulos Chilima, was about to be stopped from voting because his name was not available on the polling center where he registered. But after cross-examining and looking here and there, it was found that his name was transferred secretly to another center, which was some 100 kilometers away. But all in all, because he was the candidate, he was allowed to vote.
Okay, Saulos Chilima, they're having some few voting problems in Lilongwe. Also on the ballot, main contenders President Peter Mutharika and opposition leader Lazarus Chakwera. How tight was this election?
Yeah, the election was tight. It was very tight because even the analysts are failing to predict the winner at the moment because everyone is commanding the huge cloud. For example, unlike the previous elections, where maybe the winner would be easily predicted, this time around it's very, very, very difficult because the MCP, which was governing the country for the past which has been governing the country for 32 years until 1994, is now contesting to to be back into power. In the previously, it had no huge following, but now it has some sort of visibility in the southern region, which was predominantly for DPP. And also Chilima has just broken away from the ruling DPP, which means he has also some following from the DPP, and also he's very much followed by the youth. And on this fact, according to Malawi Electoral Commission, the youth commands over 60% of registered voters. So he also has a huge following. So it's very, very, very difficult to predict indeed, and it's tightly contested.
Okay, journalist Lamek Messina joining us there from Blantyre. Lamek Messina, thank you so much. Zimbabwe will be increasing fuel prices again. The country's energy regulatory authority has decided to increase fuel prices by a whopping 47%. 1 liter of petrol will now cost 4.97 RTGS dollars. That's about 1.3 euros. Diesel will cost about the same. The body said the move followed new measures by the central bank that removed a subsidy and a preferable exchange rate for fuel importers. In January, President Emerson Mnangagwa announced a more than 100% increase in fuel prices to tackle supply shortages. That decision sparked nationwide protests, which left at least 17 people dead after soldiers opened fire against civilians. In Sudan, military chiefs and the opposition Freedom and Change Alliance have failed to reach an agreement on political transition. They continue to be at odds over who will assume the presidency of the Sovereign Council until elections are held. There is no deadline yet for negotiations to resume. Our reporters in Khartoum, Nadia Masi, Abdullah Malkawi, and Karim Yayawi have been getting reaction from protesters.
The people at this sit-in have woken up to yet another day with no deal. The military and the opposition can't agree on who's to rule the country in the next 3 years. In fact, they don't know when negotiations will begin again. Frustration is growing, particularly among those who've travelled from as far away as Darfur.
We were optimistic. We had hoped for a better future. We are disappointed now because there is no deal. That means a return to conflict, a return to the problems of the past.
We have suffered at the hands of the military. They have created a lot of mischief, so we won't accept a military man. We want a civilian government. We won't be fooled again.
Sudanese people now say they'll take their fight beyond the confines of the sit-in. At this bank, staff have a message for opposition leaders. Give us the word and we'll walk out, going on strike.
We will continue to protest and to do what we are asked by opposition leaders, including striking. This will continue until power is in the hands of the civilians.
For the moment, life outside the sit-in rumbles on largely as normal, but protesters are clear. If there is no breakthrough soon, they will step up their campaign of civil disobedience. That means more strikes and perhaps more roadblocks too, as they try to leverage what little power they have to bring about real change for Sudan.
Benin's President Patrice Talon has spoken out 3 weeks after post-electoral violence rocked the country. He called on opposition members to enter a national dialogue, but they remain skeptical. Nicolas Germain has the details.
Benin's President Patrice Talon took his time. He waited 3 weeks before speaking about the country's post-electoral violence. The opposition did not take part in the poll because of new electoral rules. The rule's official aim was to reduce the huge number of the nation's political parties. But as a result, no members of the opposition are in the new parliament. Talon addressed the issue.
I want to ask the new National Assembly to work hard for Benin. I want it to play its role with panache so that legitimate suspicions can be erased and all can be reassured.
But the opposition said it did not want to hold talks with him.
The president missed the point completely. What we wanted to hear were precise answers to our questions. Our parliament has been stolen from us. He did not offer a helping hand. He simply promised to do so, but he has never kept his promises.
Benin is not used to political tensions, but only 27% of voters went to the polling stations last month. According to Amnesty International, 4 people were killed during the post-electoral clashes. Some observers believe the government is becoming increasingly authoritarian. Talon's allies say he is facing resistance because he's trying to implement vast reforms in a country where corruption is rife.
Finally, let's take you to the Ivory Coast, or should we say Côte d'Ivoire, as the country's use of French is becoming a full-fledged industry. If you live in an English-speaking country, you've probably at some point been put through to a call center based in India or the Philippines. Well, now that the Ivory Coast's telecom infrastructure has improved, the country is welcoming French companies. Our correspondents Thais Brouk and Frank Hersey went to listen in. They sent us this report.
At the other end of the line, a customer of one of France's largest telecoms companies. It probably never occurred to her that her case was being managed in Ivory Coast.
This is the shop floor for Intelsia Ivory Coast. The site is almost 3,000 square meters. We have almost 300 team members now who handle a volume of 10,000 calls per day.
The Moroccan company set up in Abidjan, Ivory Coast's main city, a year and a half ago.
Abidjan is a highly prized location now because we've got a great talent pool here. The level of French is excellent. The people we're recruiting here have a level of university education, and this is typically their first professional experience.
And the average age? 26. All the call handlers are trained in-house. On the curriculum, French geography and local linguistic variation. Because 90% of calls routed through this centre are with France.
We tell them that there'll be customers calling from Marseille with accents that we're not used to hearing.
But the main challenge remains reassuring the customers that the call operators are able to manage their queries from 7,000 kilometres away. This team leader recalls a difficult case.
When the caller got through, he asked quite bluntly, "Where are you?" That was the question, and he wanted an answer before going any further. And when I told him, "Sir, I'm in the Ivory Coast," he hung up.
The director assures us that cases like this are the exception. With secure phone lines and generators to cover Abidjan's power cuts, the company is hiring at breakneck speed. The team could double in size in coming months, and they're already looking for more office space.
Well, that does it for this edition of Eye on Africa. Up next, Mark Owen with a brand new hour of Live from Paris. Stay tuned to France 24.